Nothing much. Just got home from work. Got some groceries on my way home, so that's really all it's been today.
Yeah, nice. What do you usually get at the grocery store?
I try and go in with a list because if I don't, then I just end up buying random stuff. But uh, this week it's spaghetti. I got some chicken. It's like a creamy chicken recipe that I'm gonna make with some veggie noodles and then some tacos. So yeah,
Nice. You like to cook?
I do. I do like cooking. It calms me down, so it's something I do when I need a second to breathe.
All right. Good. I try to. But I keep it very simple. Like I try not to do anything crazy or explore too much with the cooking. Like, I stay in shallow waters.
Yeah.
Regular rice and stuff like that. But cool. Yeah. So this is. I think this is going to be an interesting one, right? Because this episode is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past in the podcast. But this is where we definitely we're highlighting a high performer in the career field and just get to know a little bit about Staff Sergeant Vinegas. And I will, kind of go through some of your accomplishments here in a little bit. But this initiative or this vision that I had for highlighting people in the career field stemmed from, sometimes we get those notifications from ONS and, every year, and it says, oh, here's the award winners for the Air Force. And at least me personally, I still want to know more about those individuals. Like I get the what, right? I get that they probably crushed it, or they actually crushed it, right, for that year. But who are those individuals, right? What are their why? What motivates them to do what they do? And this is essentially an attempt to get to know the person behind, all the great accomplishments and all the great things that you're doing on a daily basis. That at the end of the year, it captures everything that you've done. But this is not something that just it's a daily. I know it's a daily thing, not something that you can take on and off. It's a lot of hard work for sure. But another thing, and this is just a reflection from myself, is that last week, Global Strike had this. It's like an innovation feedback. They're trying to create an atmosphere and a movement as far as innovation and creativity. So what they did was they put airmen together in a room and they hired some civilian contractors that all they do is innovation, and they explore different ways to get ideas or to get people to think about new ideas. So they put like 9 airmen into one room, and then they went over, a lot of different questions. And then they did the same. They did the same thing with the NCOs, and then they did the same thing with the senior NCOs. So I went into the senior NCO meeting, and again, it was great. All the questions that they were asking, it really seems like this is going to be taking the command into the right direction when it comes to innovation. But they asked, one of the questions that they asked was, what fires you up, right? That they just wanted to see what fires somebody up. And each person said something, but I could think about a specific moment. And the things that fire me up tend to relate to other people. Like it's essentially other people that fire me up, like their motivation, their inspiration, they're willing to do, great things and make an impact. That's the type of thing that fires me up. I had an airman. He's straight out of tech school, straight out of PAC, A1C, and he was an AFTAC. And while he was an AFTAC, he applied to be the president of the Airmen's Council. Right. So I'm like, and then he tells me about this, and that's the type of thing that fires me up. It's just seeing people, wanting to to be better and to make an impact and to be involved and everything like that. So that's also my selfish reason um, as to why we're doing this. Um, so we're here today with Staff Sergeant Oliver Vinegas, and I'll just go through some of the achievements and this is just some of the short list that it's actually um, on your biography. But so you were the 25th Air Force, or he was the 25th Air Force Outstanding Paralegal Airman of the Year for 2018, and also the Command Outstanding Paralegal Airman of the Year. So for Air Combat Command for 2018, and then you went ahead and did it again. In 2019, you were the MASHCOM Numbered Air Force and Air Force Outstanding Paralegal Airman of the Year. So that is definitely impressive. And then you went to ALS at Alfred Air Force Base.
Yes, sir.
And you walked out of there as the John L. Levito honor graduate as well. So in other words, and you have some other things in your 1206 too. This is just the surface, but you've definitely been doing a lot of great things for our Air Force, doing a lot of great things for our career field and representing our career field well. Going into PME and making that type of a difference. So that's the introduction. But if you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit before we go into in depth with Sergeant Vinegas.
Yes, sir. My name is Staff Sergeant Oliver Vinegas. I'm currently stationed at Offutt Air Force Base at the Base Legal Office. I just transitioned into the General Law section because in the later part of July, I'll be PCAing to be the SVP here. So I'm very excited for that move. Something I've been wanting since I've been in the career field, and I've learned more about the AFLO positions that are available. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that. And now we're going to go a little bit more in depth. And just get to know, who you are and how you got to this, to where you are right now. So let's start with a little bit of background. So let's start with where are you from originally?
So originally, I was born in the Philippines, moved to California, Fairfield, California specifically, when I was around 4. To save the long story, I usually just tell people Fairfield, California is my home of record because it is. So I was born in a city, Dasmariñas, Cavite. It's in the middle part of the Philippines, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I moved here when I was 4.
Okay, good. And what do you remember about, you obviously were 4 years old, but do you remember anything from your experience in the Philippines?
So I remember quite a bit more than one would expect. The memories are very vague now since I'm a little bit older, but I remember certain things I do with my grandpa because I was basically attached to his hip. I went everywhere with him, so I remember, sitting outside while he was drinking his coffee and just like watching the street. That's a memory that's deeply rooted. I haven't forgotten that one, and I'm glad I haven't. And just a couple like family gatherings, that type of stuff. Just being around my grandparents and my mom all the time.
Okay. All right, great. And so, how was your transition? Would you say moving from the Philippines to the United States and to California?
Yes. So it was a big transition. I was 4, so I didn't really process what was going on. It wasn't like I had to say bye to any friends, or if I did, I don't remember just having to do that. So it was a little bit easier for me just because I was excited to, be with my aunt again, because the main reason we moved was for my mom, my grandpa, and I to help take care of my aunt's daughter, so my little cousin Angela. That was the primary reason we moved. And my mom and my grandpa were U.S. citizens. I was the only one that was not, just because my mom was born in Hawaii since my grandpa served in the Navy. So after he retired, they moved to the Philippines, which is where I was born. So it was a interesting transition, but one that I really didn't have to deal with in terms of it being hard right away. But as I grew older, when I was in school, I was placed in a class where they would, help teach me some English, because Tagalog was my first language. It was my native language. So I had to learn English alongside of learning with everyone else at the same time. So that was a little bit rough. And there's definitely some bullying that went on along with that, but after elementary school, it got a little bit better. So the transition itself was not too bad.
Okay. Yeah, and so along those same lines, essentially, how was it growing up in California?
It was great. The only thing I really don't miss about California is the cost of living compared to Nebraska. It's very much so day and night. Gas here is not even $2 yet, but in California I would be paying almost $4 for a gallon of gas each. So it was good. I really enjoyed it. We were in a nice part. We're from Northern California, so about 30 minutes from Napa, an hour from San Francisco. So it was a really nice mix of suburb and city, which I like. I like the mix of both. And it was nice growing up in that part of California specifically, because since my aunt had already been there, we had a lot of family and friends that we could, talk to and hang out with. So it was a nice growing up there.
Okay. All right, great. So talk to me a little bit about your family. How was, your relationship with your family growing up? How was essentially your upbringing?
Yep. So I was raised just by my mom. She raised me as a single mom. Props to her for being able to do that, because it was extremely hard, I'm sure. But I always had my aunt and my uncle there as well. Again, we moved to California to be with them. So I had a lot of people around me as a parental unit. So I really didn't notice that my dad was not there. So yeah, and my grandpa I was extremely close with as well. So my family is everything to me. I'm very close with them. I try and call them every now and then as much as I can. And I know they always look forward to me going home. They always ask me when I'm coming home. So my relationship with my family is really good.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So let's keep moving. Let's keep moving forward then. So what can you tell me about your middle school and high school years and that experience? What was it like? What were you like back then?
Oh, well, so middle school, I really I went through the motions of middle school. I was always decent at school, but I didn't really try in middle school. I was just, I would do my homework, I would study a little bit, and I would get decent grades because, middle school, if you do the work, you are more than likely to get a good grade anyway. So that was that. I was in band from middle school and high school. I started actually in elementary. So I was in band basically all my life. I was a band kid. In high school, I started doing sports, so that took up a lot of my time. So I was either in an out of school activity, or I was in school or in the library learning. So I was always busy.
Good. So here's the question, right? What did you want to be as a kid? So what did you want to? What were you gunning for, essentially?
As a kid, I was gunning to be anything in the medical field. Specifically, it always bounced around. At one point, I wanted to be a pharmacist, a nurse, and then in the end, I was set on being a pediatrician or a pediatric nurse because I like working with kids. I have two little cousins who I basically consider my little sisters. So growing up, I would always take care of them, and that kind of sparked something in me, and medical was always something I've been interested in. So that is what I wanted to be when I was growing up.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then so when you graduated high school, what happened? Did you go to college, or what were you doing as soon as you graduated high school?
So as soon as I graduated high school, I hadn't even talked to a recruiter for the Air Force yet, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I took some time to just myself. I got a job. I worked at a local grocery store making sandwiches and working the deli, so cutting up meat and cheese. So that's what I did for about a month or so, and then that's when I started talking to a recruiter, and then a couple more months later, I was shipped off to basic training.
All right. So what triggered that decision to join the Air Force?
Yeah. So I come from a pretty heavy military family. My aunt and uncle met in the Air Force. My grandpa, again, he retired from the U.S. Navy, so I was always kind of around it. And a lot of our family and friends are also in the Air Force or were in the Air Force. That's how my aunt and uncle built up such a big community in California, because they were stationed at Travis. So it was always around me, and my family always pitched the idea. They're always saying, hey, you should join the Air Force. The Air Force is great. Like, always throwing hints my way since about I think middle school. That's like the first real sit down conversation we had about it. But it wasn't until my senior year of high school, when college applications were starting, and I realized how much work it took to apply to college, but then also how much it actually was to apply. And I didn't want to put any, my mom provided for me very well. She worked very hard to keep me in band, my sports, and everything like that. But I didn't want to put any financial burden on her besides high school. So I looked into it a little bit more, and I just found myself on an Air Force website one day, and I started scrolling through, and that's that.
All right, good. Okay, all right. So that's essentially what triggered it. Mainly, you have been essentially in the back of your mind for a big part of your life, but then senior year in high school is when it actually kicked in, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then so how did that process of joining the Air Force go? So you go to the recruiter, I assume that you enter open general, right?
Yes, I did. Again, not being a U.S. citizen, my job options were very limited. So it was an option of applying for my U.S. citizenship, which my mom and I had always talked about. But after I figured out I wanted to join the military, I was like, no, when I join the military, that I'll get it then. You don't have to worry about it. So I did go in open general just to broaden my horizons in terms of what jobs I could get. But already when I was looking into the Air Force, I started researching jobs, and most of the jobs that I wanted were in the medical field, because that's what I was originally aiming to do, or anything admin. I wanted something where I was, actively thinking. So anywhere between medical or a personnelist type job is what I wanted. So open general is my best bet.
All right. And how did paralegal surface to the top of the list of your jobs?
Yes, sir. So in basic training, I wrote down my jobs, and initially I was under the impression that I was not eligible to be a paralegal at the time. I must have been looking at some outdated information, because it was still saying that you had to retrain into the career field. But obviously that's not true anymore. So I saw it on my list in basic training, and I remember talking with my aunt, uncle, my mom before I shipped, talking about which jobs I should put down, because they, I trust what they think would fit me best in terms of my personality, my work ethic, stuff like that. So I put almost all medical jobs, and then I put paralegal, and then I think I put a personnelist job at the bottom. I ended up, booking an aerospace medical contract, but I got pulled into a different room, and they said, hey, you more than likely will get this job. However, you have paralegal on your list. They're interviewing for people for that. Would you like to? And something in the back of my head was telling me, I should do it. So I said yes, and I'm here.
All right. Well, interesting. So do you think it's still true to this day that had you declined that interview, you'd be in the medical career?
I would think so. A lot of the people that put down medical jobs in my graduating class, they got a lot of medical jobs. I know one person who ended up not wanting to be a paralegal after interviewing. They said it wasn't a fit for them. They ended up becoming a dental technician. And that was the job he wanted. So I say maybe, but again, I'm kind of glad it worked out this way because I've since figured out that medical is not for me.
Okay, all right, we'll get into that. As to you came to that conclusion. So, what was your first impression then of the career field?
You want me to get into talking about like when I first arrived to tech school, or like when I first arrived to like base is in terms of operational impact?
So let's separate both, right? So let's
Okay.
do your first impression when you were at PAC, and then your first impression when you actually went operation.
Okay. So first impression at PAC, I was extremely nervous to be picked up by the MTL because again, when I was looking into the Air Force, I was doing so much research in terms of medical jobs. So I was like, oh, we're going to this tech school, and then I can pick my phase 2. I can pick Travis and be back at home. So I had no idea what was going to go on. So I was extremely nervous, expecting the MTL to just, it was like basic again, where we would get, yelled at, not pushed around, but like told what to do in a very stern way. But it was the complete opposite. Master Sergeant Ray is my MTL. He was extremely accommodating. So first impressions were great. I knew a couple people already in my class since they were in the same Airman's Week flight as me. So that was nice. First impressions walking into the JAG school for the first time, I was just in shock because I did not expect that type of learning environment. I was stressed out over the amount of information that was thrown at us because not only were we learning how to be in the Air Force and how to transition from basic training to to a technical training mindset, we were around other people of different ranks because mainly paralegals that come in are retrainees. So I was sitting next to a staff sergeant. There was master sergeants in the class. It was intimidating at first, but then I quickly got over that. The main struggle for me was learning how to study because there was just so much information. So the impact the career field had on me at that point is just like, I asked myself if that's really something I could do. So it was overwhelming, but I mean, our instructors were great and got us to graduate. So that was my first impression of the JAG Corps, just a lot of information.
That's right. Yeah, there's definitely a wow factor to the JAG school, right? Like you walk in there and it kind of hits you like, whoa, this is big time. in the Air Force JAG school anyway.
Absolutely.
And Master Sergeant Ray, he and I went to 7 level together, so that's pretty cool. Really smart guy. So being your MTL, that's pretty cool. All right, so that is your first impression when you go to PAC. Now, talk to me about your first impression in the operational Air Force.
In the operational Air Force, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I knew like everything I learned in tech school, but like I knew it on like the concept level, where I knew what Article 15s were. I knew what military justice was because the PAC is supposed to teach us the fundamentals of what we need to be a paralegal. So, and then most of the training happens on the job, so the OJT part. So I was again just kind of like overwhelmed in terms of not knowing anything. I was just shocked with the amount of information and everyone talking. Like I remember attending the justice meeting on my first day, and everyone was just they welcomed me, and then they went about business, and my sponsor just told me, like, hey, listen, because I started in military justice, but it just sounded like a foreign language to me at that point, not knowing anything they were talking about. So I was just writing stuff down, trying to remember what I learned in tech school. So that was my first impression. It was just wow, how do they know so much? And I'm really, I guess also the first impression is like, wow, I'm really in a legal career field. I'm actually going to be doing like cases with an attorney, doing impactful work. So that was my first impression, operational wise.
Gotcha. And when was that? When did you get to Offutt?
I got to Offutt in July of 2016. So it'll be 4 years this month.
Nice. I forgot to say, but do you like it?
I do. It's definitely grown on me. At first, I knew Nebraska was a state. I didn't know where it was, so I had to pull up a map when we got our orders in tech school. it's a very big change just because coming from Northern California, where it doesn't snow, to here where it does snow a lot. That was something I had to get used to very quickly, especially driving in the snow. I've seen snow before, but that was when I was a kid, so I never had to deal with it in terms of like shoveling it, driving in it. So the weather was a big change, and also just kind of the environment itself. Nebraska is very flat, um, and I'm used to being around mountains and around water, and there's not really either of those in Nebraska, but it's a really good area. Um, the retiree population here is it's very big. It's a very military-friendly community, so I like it a lot.
Okay, good. Yeah, I keep hearing great things about AFA, and more people want to go there. So good.
Yeah.
So when do you feel like you started to hit your stride as a paralegal and as a, and I must say as a superior performer?
Yes, sir. It definitely took some prying because at first, I was shy. I didn't know my footing really in the legal office. I was brand new, straight out of tech school. I didn't know how to talk to people without thinking, oh, I'm in basic training, oh, I'm in technical training. So it took prying. I remember specifically sitting down with one of my old supervisors, Tech Sergeant Stahura. She's the ADC here at Offutt. And she was going over CDCs with me one day, and she just kind of noticed that my workflow for the week had been kind of off. So she asked me what was going on, and I kind of talked to her about what was going on in terms of like, I don't feel like I'm really doing much because I don't know what I'm doing yet. And then that's when she like kind of turned on a light switch. It's like, hey, you are doing stuff, and kind of pointed me in the right direction in terms of like where to start looking for resources instead of just drafting Article 15s, because I started off in adverse actions. So I told her, I feel like I'm just going with emotions there as opposed to actually knowing what this does, or what, like, I want to be as smart as you. I want to know about the process. So she sat down with me, had that conversation, and she told me, if I was willing to learn, that she'd point me in the right direction. So that's what started it for me, was her taking the time to, talk to me and find out like what I needed to get there.
And how do you feel like you got to that place, right? Like that you understood and you valued, the work that we were doing instead of just going through the motions. Like, how do you think that you got to that point, other than just the discussions that you had with?
I think it was just realizing like what in Article 15, because that was the main experience I had, what that actually did. Because learning in tech school, we learned the UCMJ, how to draft specifications, stuff like that. But realizing, in Article 15 is a non-judicial punishment. It actually does have impact on that member's career, and it's severe impact. Learning more about the processes, excuse me. So it was when I started reading more into what I actually did, reading more into AFIs, UCMJ, looking into the checklist more. It was when I took the time to sit myself down and read and learn, because that's one of the things I'm super passionate about. I love learning. So once I finally started understanding what I was doing, that was helpful. I just needed someone to tell me where to start.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I know there's one thing, because before, I would say prior to 2016, 2015, I don't want to say that we were going through the motions, but a lot of the work just seemed like, like it was stuck to our place, to our office. Like we didn't really see the impact that it had, not just within the wing, but within the NAF, within the MESHCOM, within the service, within the mission that we have. So I really think that the flight plan, the JAG flight plan that we have, that's such an excellent product, because it definitely shows us what we're working towards, how our missions, what we do connects to the overall mission. And I think that's important for people coming new to see that the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you essentially get it, right? You start hitting your strides. You understand what it is that you're doing. You start to find value in what it is that you're doing instead of just going through the motions. And now, what essentially motivates you, or it's motivating you to to continue to pursue excellence in everything that you do?
I mean, I have to bring it back to my mom just because, you know, as I was growing up, it was, she, every parent wants their child to do well in school, but she, always told me, hey, do your best. If you're doing your best, then you're doing great. Like, that's all I want from you. If you fall short on a test, you don't get a good grade, then that's okay. So it was really starting from there. I'd always, if I'm given something, I do my best at it. So that kind of trickled all the way from my starting in my childhood. And then to now, just, I mean, see, it's just in me personally. Again, if I'm given something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So it's really, I think it's a personality thing for me because if I put out something that I'm not proud of, it does a lot worse to me than asking for an extension or something like that. So I think it's just a personal thing.
Good. And then, so 2018, you're essentially firing at all cylinders, right? Like on all cylinders, essentially, right? Because you're definitely um, doing a lot of things that are getting the attention of your supervision, um, and you make it obviously as the outstanding paralegal, airman paralegal, um, for the MASHCOM. And then 2019, we go to last year and definitely finally break through. Um, what are some of the things that you're most passionate about, or your favorite thing in the paralegal career field?
In the paralegal career field, I like um, how broad our scope is. We do so much more than what people see on the outside. So much more goes into a court martial than us getting to court and taking almost a couple months to a year, years even, to get to a full blown court martial. So I think the quality of work that we do, the people that I've worked with, also are one of the best things I've taken away from the JAG Corps. I've come across so many great attorneys and paralegals that have mentored me along the way. I definitely did not get anywhere near where I am without them, because had it not been for these people that I worked with at Offit, I don't know where I'd be, honestly. So that's what I like a lot about the career field. There's a lot of mentorship as well, and collaboration. So just, I guess, the amount of work that we do and the people that are in the JAG Corps.
Good. No, yeah, absolutely. We have, we definitely have a lot of great people in the JAG Corps. A lot of high performers, and just with the short episodes that we've done for the podcast so far, we've definitely highlighted a few of them already. But there are so many, and if you are a high performer in the paralegal career field, expect to expect a phone call from me or an IM from me, which is how I reached out to Sergeant
Yep.
Vinegas. But I definitely want to hear your story. I want to hear from you. So talk to me about your ALS experience. How was that like? Um, yeah, tell me about that.
Um, I was extremely excited to go to ALS. Again, learning is something I'm super passionate about. So I was excited to go back into a classroom environment because I've been in college, but I've been in online college, so I haven't been in a classroom environment since tech school at that point. So I was extremely excited. I was really happy to be at ALS because I was excited to learn more about leadership skills and like more about the Air Force and kind of the basic foundational stuff that they teach you in ALS. And just talking with friends that have already gone, knowing stuff that they know in terms of like, oh, like you learn this, you don't march anymore, that type of stuff. I was just super excited. So my ALS experience was great. It was nice to talk to people who were in different career fields as well. That was super refreshing just to hear different perspectives. And they also were super interested to hear as much as they could from me, in terms of what actually happens behind certain things. Specifically, when we got to the portion of supervisory skills when when the paperwork's involved or the military justice process, stuff like that. So it was a really enjoyable experience for me.
Okay. Now, did you go to the new curriculum, or?
I did. So I did not have to do any of the what is it called? The test at the end. We did essentially a capstone. So we were given a couple scenario questions and X amount of space to write in or respond. So um, that was the curriculum I was under.
Okay. No, I like the new curriculum better than the
Hmm.
old curriculum, just because uh, there's a lot more opportunity to have open and honest discussions without having to worry about whether this is on the test or it's not on the test.
Hmm.
Because I think that was the main problem with the old curriculum. It's like, yeah, they were kind of listening to what I was trying to say as the instructor, but they were mainly, yeah, sir, is this going to be on the test? And I don't know, everything's going to be on the test, right? So I can't, but they were more worried about that. And I didn't feel like the conversations were as organic as they became after that, right? Because there's not that pressure of
Absolutely.
of the test and the capstone. I mean, the capstone is, I mean, not trying to give the answers to no
Yeah.
capstone, but
Absolutely not.
but um, but it's low threat. It's really
Hmm.
low threat, and
It
really, it's
was.
just
Yeah.
based on your own understanding of the concepts. But yeah, there's definitely missing the element of knowing how to draft an LOC or knowing
Yes,
how to
there
draft,
is.
yeah, bullet writing, right? I think that's the biggest complaint that people had
Absolutely.
when they came over. It's like, oh, we don't learn how to do bullet writing. But really, in full disclosure, people weren't getting any better from the old career, getting, because it was just one day and not just a
Mhm.
full day. It was just like 2 hours that we practiced bullet writing, and then that was it. So they weren't leaving there with, being that much better at bullet writing anyways. They kind of knew what it was and a basic understanding that that's it. So I don't think
Mhm.
they miss it, but I think this honest discussions about how to be a leader, how to be a supervisor, it's much better. And I also
Absolutely.
understand the challenge that it is to stand out. I mean, not just stand out, but to have the buy-in from your peers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not always hard. So there's a lot of things that you have to do. Um, and it has to be genuine. Like, people that are fake do not make, you know what I mean? Like, are not gonna
Yes.
exit,
Absolutely.
right? They're not gonna exit ALS with being the Levitto Award winner. It's very different now than it used to be before. It's really based on peer, and that says a lot about what the people that you were with thought about you. Um, in that you ended up being the John Levitto Award winner, right? And I'm just proud of that, to see a paralegal going in there and coming out number one in the class. So again, I know this happened last year, but that is really impressive.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I definitely agree with what you said. I loved the new curriculum because, as soon as they mentioned, "Hey, you guys are in the new curriculum. There's no test." Um, I, it was a kind of a relief because then I was able, like you said, to pay more attention to what are we learning and how can we discuss things out, get different viewpoints. Because again, like you said, if we were just paying attention to the concept, trying to learn them for an exam, those organic conversations or those questions wouldn't have come about as much.
Absolutely. So people just learn a little bit about the new curriculum in ALS, and I think that it is definitely much better. But it does puts the onus on supervisors, right, in order to teach and mentor their airmen on how to do bullet writing and how to
Mhm.
do all these other, like an ACA, an initial
Yes,
feedback, midterm feedback. That's not something that it's happening at ALS anymore, but it's definitely the responsibility of the supervisor to make sure that they know how to do that. And let's see. I'm going over. I have for your 1206, right? And there's some
hmm
highlights. There are some highlights in here from last year. First off, I mean, this is a lot of hard hitting stuff, right? This is a lot of great things, and again, um, this definitely a well deserved, outstanding airman of the year, outstanding paralegal airman of the year. award because I mean this is a lot of can already tell this is a lot of hard work, um, and just a lot of hours that you have to devote
Yes.
to a lot of these different things. But what was this? The iPad. So how did you utilize the iPads?
Yes. So in my office, like many offices, we've got our meetings, we've got our reports to go over them, and printing them off weekly was just it was so much time. Uh, the paper obviously costs a lot, and while the printers are on contract, it's wasteful. Um, so our wing had an innovation call for innovation funds. Essentially, there was a pot. There was a certain amount of money there that the wing commander had to allocate to different units for different types of funding for an innovation project. And if I'm remembering correctly, that's how we got approved for it. But some talk in the office. It was not my idea, but definitely credit to everyone in the section at that point talking over, like, we could try like electronic documents, and first thinking like, well, how are we even going to make that happen? But instead of that, we pitched the idea, we got approved for the funding, and it was the execution part that was on me and a couple airmen to figure out how, because I was also the GPC holder, so it was how to get those, iPads, how to use them properly, making sure that we're in compliance with COM, because if we need to register them with COM, that type of stuff. So that's how that idea came about. Just discussion throughout the office of how to eliminate the waste of paper.
Nice. That's one thing that I'm big on is trying to do more things electronically,
Hmm.
right? Instead of doing the paper thing, especially the routes. I
Absolutely.
could talk about routes all day, but
Yeah.
we've had these mountains of routes in our offices taking all this space, and we have so much room in our hard drives. It's like, well, you could put me in this hard drive and won't take that much space, but instead we're just doing that. Yeah, no, there's a lot of other good stuff in here as well. A lot of volunteer, um, and how do you do to get involved in the community? Like, do you just look for emails? Do you go out there? What type of things are you doing in order to be involved in the community?
Yes. So that portion, specifically for the volunteerism, I look for things that interest me the most. Like when I was in A1C trying to go for senior airman below the zone, or even just like when I first got to the base to meet new people, I was trying to find stuff that I was passionate about, because I didn't want to just volunteer for hours. I didn't want to just volunteer for blue. I wanted to volunteer for something I enjoyed, so it didn't feel like work. So the first thing I found was Off It Against Drunk Driving. So we were standby airmen. I was the dispatcher in terms of like getting people to and from, uh, a bar or downtown to their house safely. So I found that out through base. I also volunteer at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. So I found that one through just looking online, because at that point I was still interested in being in medical. And there was an option for me to volunteer in the pediatric ward, which is exactly what I wanted, medicine and around kids. So I volunteered for that, and that's how I figured out slowly that I am not meant to be in the medical career field whatsoever. It's not for me. So that is how I found those volunteer opportunities.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know sometimes people get stuck and they're waiting for an email.
Hmm.
But if you're waiting for an email, probably don't really want to volunteer. So you gotta at times you just gotta get out there. You just gotta make phone calls, and like you
Hmm.
said, it's definitely better if it's something that you're passionate about. But at times you won't really know whether you're passionate about something
Very true.
until you go out and explore and see
Hmm.
whether or not that's something that you're into, right? And one of the best things is that the people that you meet and the connections that you make in those events and the networking is just and it makes you a better paralegal because you can get answers quicker, right? You can just pick up the phone and make a phone call and hey, this person I know you from uh,
Hmm.
you know the drunk driving events, or I know you from the Airmen's Council or 5-6 or whatever the case may be, and now you're being more effective and you can do more for your people.
Absolutely.
So okay, so Sergeant Vinegas. What's in the future? Does the future hold for Sergeant Vinegas? Where do you see yourself here in the not so distant future?
Not so distant future, across the street in the Special Victims Council office. But in terms of less on the surface, I'm working still towards my bachelor's degree. I'm almost done with it. It should be done here in the next year. So, again, school's something I'm super passionate about. So, finding a master's program, jumping into that. And I'm really interested. My main goal since I've been in the Air Force is to apply and be accepted to be an officer. So, hopefully, one day going through OTS and being a commissioned officer somewhere.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, no, and best of luck. And I don't see why or any reason why you wouldn't be able to achieve those goals. Um, so far, what you've done for the Air Force and what you've done for the paralegal career field definitely speaks volumes. Um, and I am very glad that you've been recognized for the hard work that you've been doing. And again, just keep crushing it. And this is awesome. This has been great, being able to get to know you a little bit more, and hopefully, other people in the career field also get an opportunity to know who Sergeant Vinegas is, and our airman of the year, our outstanding airman of the year for 2019. So, thanks for agreeing to do this.
Of course, sir. Thank you for having me on such a big platform. I saw the podcast initially, and podcasts are something I've recently gotten into. So I'm like, wow, something that I can listen to in the background that's productive, and I'll learn something that, not just for my personal growth, but in terms of the Air Force, and not only learning how to lead, but also the job. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. No. Thank you, and thank you for the support. Again, for being here and for being such an outstanding airman and NCO in our paralegal field. So if you ever need anything, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yes, sir, will do.
But thanks again. That's all we have for today.
Okay.
I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe with all the fireworks going on. I don't know how it is at Whiteman, but here at Offutt, they're crazy about their fireworks off base.
Yeah, no, they are about to do some crazy things with fireworks. But there's also COVID-19 going on. How is it over there?
Things are opening up, and there's they still got the social distancing markers, which I really question if they're actually 6 feet. Again, math is definitely not my expertise or metric system at all, but way too close. And some people still aren't wearing masks, but on base it's really good. We're required to wear masks in certain facilities. It's slowly opening up, so things are looking good over here.
Okay, awesome. Well, stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. Do you guys have a 4-day as well?
We do, sir.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that wasn't the case when I left. In 2013, when I left to go overseas, we weren't doing no 4 days. It was definitely 3 days. This just started at some point while I was going overseas, because PACA I think they've always done 4 days. So that's good.
I was shocked to see a 4-day. But then again, I could sometimes forget what down days we do have. So when they come about, it's just a nice surprise. So, yeah.
That's right. All right, Sergeant Vinegas, thanks again.